Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Loan Officer Wealth Podcast. I am here with Audrey Boisssanoux. Audrey, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's a pleasure.
Awesome. Well, for our listeners, I would love for you to give us just a brief background of your history in the mortgage business and, your advocacy for the industry, and then we'll get into some of the other stuff.
All right. That sounds great. So I grew up thinking I was either going to be a concert violinist or an attorney. And that ended up morphing because my birth mother found me and she hired a detective, found me, and helped me move back to the Bay Area in California, where I was from. And she owned a mortgage company with real estate and property management.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was supposed to just work there until I went back to school to be an attorney. And we know what the mortgage business is like. Once you start, it just never ends, right? So I just got addicted. I loved it. And that's where I ended up. So anyway, and it was a great place to work. It was because I was exposed to all sorts of different things: mortgages, real estate, property management. That's a good basis for an LO. But there was no structure, like none. So it was just baptism by fire. And I I kind of have, not kind of, I have that heart where I just want to help people, right? So
Yep.
I was very airy fairy. Oh, well, if that loan is supposed to be my loan, it will just come to me. It will just happen, right? It'll be the right thing at the right time. So anyway, it took me a long time to understand that that was not the way forward. And I did fine, but I wasn't burning it up.
Yep.
So then the meltdown came. I was not happy, to put it mildly, because I didn't do crappy loans. But then at some point, it occurred to me I also hadn't done anything for our industry and I hadn't done anything to help. So I got involved with the California Association of Mortgage Professionals and eventually ended up being president for the state of California during the pandemic. When lockdown hit, I was president. Yeah, that's right. No in person meetings, no nothing, right? So what do we do? So I'm like, okay, there are all these loan officers sitting in their houses with no information as the market is just going nuts. We got jumbo, non-QM disappear overnight. We have the CARES Act that changed everything. Appraisals, credit, landlord tenant law, PPP loans, EIDL. Like, it just went on and on and on. It felt like we were in a war, you may recall. So I'm like, well, what can we do for our members? So we started cranking out these videos, me and my President-elect Kevin Casey. And at first, I wouldn't be on camera. I did not want anyone to see me. I figured they didn't want to see me. It was all good. And so I would have someone come in and do a presentation. And this lasted for a few weeks before they were completely burnt out. And like, dude, I can't do this anymore. I'm like, oh crap. Meanwhile, I've got Kevin going, you got to be on camera. You need to be on camera. You need to get a camera. And
Yep.
so I'm like, he bullied me into it. That's basically what happened. So I get this camera and now here we are. So we're doing these videos and that was 3 years ago almost.
Wow.
So we have transitioned into now it's Mortgage Pros 411, where every Tuesday it's been great. And it's a perspective from a loan officer or a loan officer. What's happening for me today with my loans? What am I experiencing? What are my clients saying? What are my realtors and referral partners saying? How does that all fit together? What do I need to know? So that's the quest I'm always on. Meanwhile, I'm a director for the National Association of Mortgage Brokers. So my advocacy efforts continue because it's so important. As LOs, I know that for myself, I sat in my office thinking, what difference does it make for the longest time? But they're legislating like crazy and they're regulating like crazy. So whether it's from a legislative perspective or it's a regulatory perspective, all of this comes down to LOs and it impacts all of us and our borrowers. Whether or not you want to think that it does, why should I be involved? Why does it matter? Why should I join my association? Well, because everything that they're regulating and legislating affects your business.
Yep.
Okay. So at least be a member for God's sake. You don't have to go nuts like some of us, but you should do something. So be a member, when they do a call to action, respond, that kind of thing. So here we are.
That is amazing. So, what I'm interested in what you see, because you went through a crazy time at the tip of the spear
Right.
of guiding the industry and helping disseminate that information. Where do you see the market now that we're kind of on the other side of it now with interest rates coming back up and taming inflation and all of that? So, where do you see the industry right now, and where do you think it's going?
Okay, so it depends on what part of the industry you're talking about. But in general, I would agree we are on the other side of it. I feel like when inflation started to moderate in November and the rates started to come down, it's never in a straight trajectory, as we know. It's always, a bumpy ride, and it always seems like rates go down slower than they go up. But we are on that path. Now, remember that, some country can invade another country and poof, it's all a different scene, right?
Yep.
So having the information, because what we're seeing is a couple of things. Number one, so much misinformation in the
Yeah.
media. So, and borrowers think they know everything, and realtors are sitting there going, holy smokes, what do I do next? Right. So, borrowers think they have information. They're often wrong because if you read a headline, it may or may not be correct. So, I'll talk about my favorite, and by favorite, I mean most ridiculous headline from 2022 in my perspective. Foreclosures up 185%. Holy crap. You read that headline and the sky is falling. We're having the meltdown again. I mean, values are plummeting. And so people are either thinking, oh my God, I'm totally in trouble, or, yay, I'm about to get a deal and I'm just going to wait. I don't need to do this right now because it's, right? Okay. So if you take a little dive into that headline, the reality is they were saying foreclosures were up 185% from a year ago when we have a foreclosure moratorium. No, no foreclosures. Now we're at like some ridiculously low, historically low number, but the headline is making people think the sky is falling. You as an LO, you need to know these things. It's really, really important because when your borrowers are saying, I don't want to buy right now. I'm going to get a good deal in a 6 months, a year, whatever. And the realtors are sitting there going, holy crap, I haven't closed a deal in months and nobody wants to buy. And, oh God, what do? You have the information to set them on the right path. Say, look, here's the deal. A year ago, we had a foreclosure moratorium. The foreclosures at historic lows. 30 and 90-day delinquencies also really, really low. Nobody on the upper levels, like heads of FHFA, et cetera, they're not seeing delinquencies. Heads of big, huge servicing companies not seeing major delinquencies. It's not a problem. But if you just taken that headline at face value, it's all over, right? The sky is falling. Okay, so that's a good example.
I could not agree more. And I feel like there's so much opportunity to take that fear-based news cycle and to position yourself against it, because I think the general consensus of consumers, especially in your local marketplace, is that they would rather become educated from an expert in the niche than go out and get their news from one of the major news agencies, because they know the news agencies are just in it for salacious headlines and ratings and that sort of thing. And I also think social media has changed our culture in the fact that you can get specific information direct from the source about the direct thing that you're trying to research. And the only thing that makes that work is the accessibility of the professionals that are putting out content, because the content then creates the conversation. And the conversation is where you generate conversions, and conversions obviously being new clients, new customers, and all that sort of thing. So in going through your own journey of not wanting to be on camera, not wanting to get out there, and then ending up, leading an industry with content, what are some of your tips for making that transition? Because there's a lot of loan officers that are still scared of getting on camera. Everybody's worried about, if I say this and I'm not 100% correct, people are going to rip me up on social media and that sort of thing. So what would you say to those people, and how would you try and help get them over that hump?
Okay, so first thing I want to start with, though, is all the way through the pandemic, we're like, okay, you got to have some, like, get up in the morning, take a shower, put some clothes on that don't stretch, like, and now get out of your house and go meet someone, because that's like the number one best way to make connections and convert, right? Is in
Yep.
person. And second to that is the online. So with the whole video thing, so the first video I ever made, it started off with one of my kids. I have 3 grown kids. So, and I had sticky notes with little bullet points of what I wanted to say, and I had them stuck to their face, because that was kind of like I could look up a little bit. They're all taller than me. And I would be like, here we go. So it took, I want to say 28 takes, 28 takes. By the time we were done, all 3 of them were on the deck with me. We were crying. We were laughing so hard because it was so ridiculous, but I got it done, right? Okay. That was my first shot, because I really was trying to like not have it be ridiculous, and I kept mumbling it. And, so it took some practice. At this point, what I've realized, people don't expect perfection. Nobody cares. They want you to be real. That's the most important thing is, can they relate to you? And if you're a drone or a really stiff, if you're stiff, they're not going to relate to you. They're not going to, it's not the same, right? They want you to be a person. So just be who you are. It doesn't have to be perfect. You do have to smile. So we have some guests who are regulars on our show who I'm always teasing. They're very, very well known in the industry. They're amazing. And I'm like, could you please practice in front of the mirror, smiling before you come on the show? That'd be awesome. So you don't have to smile the whole time, but at least so they feel you, right? You're not stiff. So work at not being stiff, and practice in front of your friends. Like, get on a Zoom call with your friends, right? People you love, who love you, no matter what you look like or what you do, they're not going to care. And practice with them. Practice with your kids. Do something. You don't even have to practice that much. Don't overdo it. Just do it. Do it.
That is amazing. Now, do you have a favorite channel, or do you find that the content is picked up by the consumer better on one channel versus another?
I would say it's almost impossible for the average consumer to find a channel that they would be accessing that is going to deliver what they need. So no, actually. So my strategy, what I do is I'm all over the place, right? And that's what we do on our show on Tuesdays, is I kind of try to bring it in. And if there's something that I've seen, then I highlight it and say, okay, here's what this says. And here is what the real story might be, or is. Not even might be, usually it is. So I think for the consumer, it's really hard for them. They'll have an understanding to an extent where they're almost dangerous. You know what I mean? And then you've got to make sure you can get them to the point where they really get it. And again, why should they do their loan with you and not just go push a button? That's why.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many sources of information, specifically about mortgages and what's happening in the marketplace, but just general. So where do you think is a good place for loan officers to be getting their information from, so that they can then take it back and be like, okay, what's my take on this? How am I going to present this to my market, to my consumers, to my customers?
Right.
Where do you think the best place is for that content?
Well, I think podcasts like this, shows like ours on Tuesday, I think this is what they have to plug into. You have to make sure that the person that you're listening to actually does have credibility, that they are right. So when you're listening to them and they're saying X, Y, and Z, they actually know what they're talking about. So you have to do a little digging. And this is something that we have gotten out of the habit of doing. I think we sort of take things at surface value. That's not how to approach this. So listening to credible people in the industry who have dedicated themselves to what's going on, that's who you want to listen to. And depending on how much time you want to spend, like pick a podcast or two. I tease our listeners and I'm like, listen, we have a YouTube channel, and if I'm not talking fast enough, go listen to it on double speed. You'll get through it faster, right? So it's the people in the industry, frankly, who are going to be the experts, because even like you listen to CNBC, holy guacamole, it is misinformation central, right? And if you followed their advice, you would have never bought a house. You would have missed out on all sorts of equity in the last 10 years. It would have been a disaster. And so in some of the prominent people in the financial services industry, same thing. where they're giving advice that is unbelievable. Like I had a friend call me years ago who was following. I won't even say names. You're welcome, because I try to behave that way. But anyway, they had been told they had to be in a 15-year fixed mortgage. Okay, they had 5 children who were young. The husband had just graduated from vet school and had $1 zillion in student loans. These people were barely scraping by, and they're being told they should be in a 15-year fix by a financial advisor. Are you kidding me? So again, we know that's crazy. So we share that. So anyway, that kind of thing. You got to talk to people who are experts in the industry.
Yeah, I could not agree more. And just one thing, when you have one conversation with one client, you're making one impact on one life. But when you can take that story, take the names out of it, but tell the same story to the people in your local marketplace through online content, social media, your email list, you can help hundreds of people. Because that's another thing that I've discovered about content and social media. The amount of people that mention it to me in personal one-to-one conversations about content that I've produced or stuff that I've put out there, there's a huge impact that happens with that content, but you get very little feedback online for the content that you produce. So it's easy to get discouraged when you're publishing YouTube videos and you're only seeing 50 views on them, or you're not getting those huge view counts of like the Gary V and all of that. And I think that's where people stop in the mortgage industry. It's like, oh, I haven't blown up, I haven't gone viral, I'm just going to stop. And I think it's important to understand that the goal line is not like, you're not going to become an internet sensation. But for every one conversation that you have, if you can change that and help 50 people and help 50 different people with every video that you do, well, if you live in a city of 100,000 people, in 2 to 3 years, you're going to touch everybody,
Right.
know?
Right. Well, and also our friend Ginger Bell, we were talking to her recently, and she was saying that one of her people that she works with had started out, it took them a year to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube, a year. And now they have millions. I mean, it takes time. So you don't do it once or twice or 3 times and think, ooh, I'm done. No, you have to make a commitment to it. And it goes back to structure, where you have to schedule this into your day. It has to be part of what you do as an LO. It is, and don't start off big. Oh, I'm going to do a video every day or every week. Like, make it manageable. I'm going to do a video once every other week for 5 minutes or 2 minutes. 2 minutes is better. Like, the shorter, the better. I mean, everyone has a lot of people, I guess I shouldn't say everyone. A lot of people have very short attention spans. So the shorter, the better. Pick that little nugget, right, that you want to convey. A perfect one was, again, during lockdown when everyone was doing the forbearance. So forbearance was available. You didn't have to be delinquent. Yet there were all these people who were still delinquent on their loans. They could have been in forbearance. All they had to do was ask. So we kept telling people, let your people know, do a little video on YouTube, or not on YouTube, on Facebook, on social, on wherever. And let people know all they have to do is call their servicer, but they didn't. And so again, it just can be one little thing, and get it out there and do it consistently.
Yep, I could not agree more. Audrey, thank you for being so generous with your time and your information. Where can people go to connect with you, and where can people go to get on your Tuesday show and get that information? Because I highly recommend it.
www.mortgagepros with an S 411 mortgagepros411.com. That's our website. And there you can register to sign up for the weekly show. And you can also find the videos that will link you to YouTube, which is also Mortgage Pros 411. And I'd like to encourage you to be your listeners to be part of their associations. Join NAMB. It's NAMB.org. It's crazy inexpensive. And at least you would be part of the conversation. You don't have to dive in and get involved. And then you have state associations that are strong and doing great work too. So thank you so much, Chris, for having me. I so appreciate it.
Audrey, it was my pleasure. Thank you for everything that you do for the industry and for being here today. And to all of our listeners, thank you for listening. Don't forget to head on over to iTunes, hit us with a 5-star rating and review, and like and comment and share this information on social media so that we can get this incredible message from Audrey out to more and more people. Thank y'all for listening.